Hello everyone, Fjalder here. So the anniversary show ended about an hour ago for me, and I'm spending some time making this video. I'm a little bit sleep deprived at this point, but I'm pretty sure I won't make any major mistakes here. So let's just jump right into it and talk a little bit about what they announced. So the first thing they showed off is Demon Matthew, also known as Wehttam. Yes, that's actually what they're calling him. I don't know if they're gonna call him that for global. Maybe you can start messaging Zalone now and telling them that's a stupid name. But anyway, this guy is Dark, Mythical, and Protagonist factions. It's unknown if he has a faction buff, but it is known that he is a DPS. He has a really high attack stat, and he has both AoE and single target attacks. I'm not going to sit here and read every little bit of it to you, but just know that from what they've shown so far, this guy looks pretty strong. He's got some nice attack defense and damage dealt and even damage taken reduction bonuses. He's got a conditional guard pierce, and his summon sword thing from his 3C, while it cannot move or do anything, it does count as a unit, so it does take up a space, so that is something worth noting out of all of this. As for the rest of it, I think if you want to take a closer look, you can just pause the video and take a closer look. Otherwise, I'm going to move on. I don't have a whole lot to say. Like I said, he looks pretty strong, but we'll see. Next we have Werner and Mariendel being revealed, I guess. We already knew they were coming. Werner gets to have his name spelled with a V, which I guess is not the worst thing. It's actually kind of funny when you think about it because it's Langrisser 5 and it's a V. Maybe it's just a coincidence, I don't know. As far as Werner goes, they said that he is using two swords now. One of them is a melee sword and one of them is a ranged sword. And they're going to be working that into his character or unit design somehow. They didn't really go into details, but that's all they say about him for now. As for Mariendel, they just said that she's honed her plant powers over the years, so she is a lot more powerful now than she used to be. And also she's older, so her hair is pink, because why not, I guess. And that of course leads us into the new story. So as they hinted to before, we are exploring a completely new land. It is in fact a completely new continent that has never appeared in the Langrisser lore before. A new land called Gale Pais. You can tell it's a continent from a fantasy game because it has a gratuitous apostrophe in there. The heroes are actually going to be traveling to this new land alongside McLean, who appears to be the real McLean. He's lived all this time. And hopefully that also means for McLean fans he will be obtainable quite soon, but we'll see. So here's a map of the new continent. It's split into 6 distinct sections, and they actually have quite a few ideas going on here. And they actually went into detail for each and every one of them, so I'm going to run through all of them real quick here. First you have the City of the Starship. So those of you who have been following the Act 2 story will know that the Crimsonians had to run away from Yles. The people of Regenburg were kind of blaming the Crimsonians for the fog that was caused by Gizarov, so a lot of them just left Yles for greener pastures, and I guess they ended up here, in Gale Pais, and they've constructed a new town for themselves called the City of the Starship. We don't know a ton about this city just yet, and I have no idea who this guy in silhouette is supposed to be, but they did in fact show in one point in the trailer that Virash and Brenda are both here. We are not sure if they're actually alive in the present day, and I'll explain that in a second here. But I do think it's likely they're alive, and we're going to be seeing some familiar faces from the old Langrisser games still, even though this is a completely new land. Right to the south of the City of the Starship is Tsuruya. So I guess they wanted to introduce a more Asian-themed kind of area in Langrisser. Langrisser has always had more of a Western, especially Germanic theme to it. Now in the past you did have exceptions to this, of course, like for example Kirikaze is from a Japanese-like area, but this is obviously not that place because Gale Pais exists in the southern part of this world, rather than the eastern part of the world, which is where Kirikaze is from. Whatever case, this area, Tsuruya, seems to have a mixture of both Japanese and Chinese characteristics to it, and this character in silhouette does seem to have a sort of Chinese or Japanese-style swordsman kind of feel to her. Definitely a future waifu character, so I'm sure some of you are interested already, but we'll see. So in the western portion of Gale Pais is Rankar. The dev says that this area is largely inspired by the Mayan culture, and we see we got a character here also in silhouette who is using a whip of some kind. Aside from that, I don't think they actually shared a lot of info about it, but just more interesting original characters coming our way. To the north of Gale Pais is a desert area called Felral. They gave a short description of this area, which is basically that this was once a very strong empire. They follow a very strict the strong will survive kind of code. But apparently in recent years there's been some kind of decline in their empire, and perhaps we'll get to explore that in the story somewhat. Apparently this land is ruled by a very powerful queen, but they didn't share a whole lot of details, although there were some flashes of some original characters, perhaps, in the trailer, one of which you can see here. The last area to describe is the area of Norlam to the south of Gale Pais. Now, being that Gale Pais exists in the southern portion of the world, this is basically like the Antarctica of this world, I guess. The devs said that this is a society shrouded in mystery. They kind of prefer to keep to themselves, and they seem to have made advances in their culture that have made them arrogant and believe themselves to be better than others, which is why they don't really contact with the outside world. That seems to be their description of this area, but we're gonna have to see. There is one last area that they basically did not give any info on, and that is this area in the middle, called Elysium. Now, I gotta say this is really, really interesting. Those of you who have played Langrisser Tensei know that the Elysium project was a very big plot point in that game, and of course the arc that was being built was in fact called Elysium. And at one point in the trailer that they showed, someone actually says something along the lines of, "I am the mastermind behind the Elysium project." So there's definitely something weird going on there, but they were very tight-lipped about it. It does seem like they're trying to bring the Tensei story into the main world of Langrisser somehow, but it's unknown how that's going to work out. At the very least, it's a very obvious reference, and they're teasing us for sure. So I mentioned before this show that they had teased before that this is going to be like a dual timeline sort of story, and apparently there's not going to be any kinds of like time travel shenanigans or anything like that. They clarified that instead what they meant was that Werner and Mariando left Iles for Gale Pais about 10 years before the events of the game of Langrisser Mobile, and we're going to be following the events of both our heroes, Matthew and company, traveling with McLean, and we're also going to be seeing the story of Werner and Mariando unfold 10 years into the past. Now, it is kind of weird that they marketed this as if it's something new that they're doing, because in Act 2 story, they already did something sort of similar to this, because we did see into the past and found out what happened between Langrisser 4 and 5 and the mobile story. But I do think it's going to be a little bit different in the sense that it sounds like they're actually going to have two parallel linear storylines that we're going to see the whole thing out of. Whereas in the Act 2 story, when we peeked into the past, it was just little bits and pieces of it. Overall, I think there's a lot of really interesting plot developments going on here, but they were obviously very tight-lipped about a lot of it. So we're going to have to wait and see if it turns out well. I'm personally very curious. Next, they showed off their UI redesign, so they're actually revamping the UI in this game. I have no idea how extensive it's going to be, but they showed off this screenshot, which I guess is probably more of a proof of concept, because there's some weird numbers on this screen unless they're going to change some very core parts of the game. You can see, for example, that the max stamina here is 100, which obviously is not what max stamina typically is. And personally, I'm not sure how much I like this UI, because the current UI we have is very intuitive. Everything's at the bottom of the screen and you can see all of them. You just gotta figure out each button. Here they spread the buttons all over the place and they're all different sizes. I mean, it looks nicer, but it's kind of weird. But I'll keep you guys posted and let you know if the new UI is any good. It does look nice, I'll give it that, but I don't know if it's actually going to play nicer. We'll see. So the new mode that they said that they would announce, as many people guessed correctly, is in fact a new town building mode, like we see in so many other mobile games where you probably just gotta build a city and just leave it alone and get resources out of it. So basically there's 3 different buildings. You get resource buildings, which you use to get even more buildings. You got the gift buildings, which are what you use to get actual rewards, and then you have fluff buildings, which are just there to make your town look nice. You can place down heroes into this town that you're creating, and they sometimes have spontaneous conversations, which I doubt will be anything significant, but you know, it's just a fun little feature, I guess. But apparently you can't just place them down carelessly, because you need to do this middle image here, which is there's this web of characters and you need to connect chains between them by having them have similar factions. And by increasing the number of links between these characters, you will increase your resource generation. So you can't even place down your favorite heroes, you have to place down your favorite faction, I guess. I don't know how much I like that. Also, the star levels of your characters matters as well. So aside from that, they listed off some of the items that can come from this mode. They said high-level Aniki materials, SSR enchant scrolls can come out of this mode, Wheels of Fate can come out of this mode, SSR equipment selection. I'm not entirely sure what they mean by that, if you can choose the SSR equipment or if it's just like, you know, like those random packs. They weren't very specific about it. And finally, they're adding a new item called the Multi-Purpose Hero Shard. So basically, this just morphs into a hero shard of your choice. You might be wondering, what's the difference between that and a Wheel of Fate? Well, remember that a Wheel of Fate you can only use as long as you have the Gate of Fate stage still available. this multi-purpose hero shard can be on top of that, and you can give more shards to a character you like. Finally, there's even some miscellaneous rewards from this mode. You can increase the max sweep on time rift stages, if you really wanted that, I guess. You can increase auto repeat chances, sure, why not? That's actually kind of nice, I do want more of those sometimes. You can increase your clock of forgiveness chances, because I guess we need more of those. And they actually had a bullet point that said there's something that can increase your daily stamina. Now, I don't know if this just means the amount of stamina you get per day, or like you just get like an extra burger or something, or does it mean that you can actually increase your max stamina? Because that last one would actually be really, really nice in my opinion. But whatever, we'll see, and I'll let you guys know when it comes out. So next, of course, they have some new soldiers. They said they're going to add more than just these two over the course of the year, and we'll see more of them as they come along. But for now, they have shown a new Holy class and a new Lesser class of soldiers that are going to come out with the 3.0 patch. The Holy Soldier is a very interesting soldier that's kind of a hybrid soldier. It adds healing, it has some defense, and it can even have some attack if your hero is a Holy class. So it's a pretty interesting soldier. It has sort of a bit of everything. And they added another new offensive Lancer unit. Not that I mind having more of these, and we were pretty limited on the number of Lancer attackers we have, so it's a nice addition. Both these soldiers look pretty good, but we're going to have to see who can actually use them before we can make a complete judgment of them, I guess. Last thing was some collab news. They said that Record of Lotus War is going to get a rerun. So for those of you who missed out on D-Lit, you're going to get another chance. And finally, they announced a new collab for the future, which is Valkyria Chronicles. They strangely did not mention Gintama at all, which does raise some concern for some people, I think. But for now, I guess be excited about Valkyria Chronicles. And that's all I got for you guys right now. I know I kept this kind of short, and I didn't go into super detail, and maybe I rushed a little bit, but I think I'm ready to take a nap after all that. Now, personally, the gameplay changes seem very par for the course to me. There's nothing super exciting this time like SP Heroes were last year, but I am actually quite excited about the story changes this time as opposed to last year where I wasn't as excited about the story announcements. So let me know what you guys think in the comments. What are you excited about? What you hope to see? And if you have any questions, be sure to ask them as well. I'll try to answer them. Anyway, I'm gonna go take a nap now. See you guys later.